Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Legends of Sport podcast. Andy Bernstein back here bringing you another fantastic guest. This guy, I've known him well. Let's see, he's in his 12th NBA season. I've known him his whole career. I've watched him grow as a player, win a championship, win a gold medal, lead the way in mental health awareness, not only in the NBA, but across the board in sports. It's my pleasure to have the great Kevin Love on the podcast. Just a couple of tidbits here, some notes about Kevin. 2008 NCAA champion with UCLA. He was the fifth pick in the 2008 NBA draft. He's a five-time NBA All-Star, Olympic gold medalist in 2012, and a 2016 NBA champion with the Cavs. His 2018 Players Tribune article really opened the floodgates for mental health awareness, and he has taken that mantle and has run with it ever since, setting up the Kevin Love Fund, which, in a nutshell, wants to normalize the conversation around mental health. And Kevin has been very active in the mental health community, doing so much right now during the coronavirus pandemic in Cleveland and throughout the country and throughout the world. So it's my pleasure to have Kevin Love as a guest. I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I did. And as always, see you on the backside. How you doing, man?
I'm good. It's been like everybody, an interesting time. So it's like, it's just, really odd to just navigate this time and find ways to stay busy, routine, fill up your days. It's just, I'm sure it's the same for everybody. I feel like we're asking every time. It's like, how are you doing? It's
right. Yeah. Well, I want to welcome you to the Legends of Sport podcast, my friend. It's so great of you to make the time. I know that your time is in a lot of demand because I see you all over the place. But I really appreciate it. And a big shout out to Robin for helping to make this happen.
Yeah, Robin's, she's great.
Well,
love working with her.
Thank you for that. So you touched on it a little bit. What's your daily routine like? How are you staying in shape mentally and physically?
For me,
get ready.
Yeah, I just exactly, that's exactly right. We're kind of in a holding pattern right now. So it's almost like training for the season. Like you almost don't want to peak too early or just grind so much that when you actually get back that you're kind of exerting yourself to a point where you're gonna burn out, but at the same time it's finding that balance and knowing that for a non-playoff team like we are, it's likely only going to be 5 to 10 games. So it's like finding that way to I mentioned navigating this time, but for me it's just assessing like head to toe, body and mind, what I need throughout the day, while this month being super heavy and focused around mental health because it's Mental Health Awareness Month. So I've been able to work on my fund, work with several people and relationships that we've had over the past couple of years in starting my fund, and then just continuing to eat right while still being, I've been actually playing sous chef with my girlfriend, Kate. So she's been doing all the cooking and, been telling me where to go, what to grab, and been getting on the grill and just trying new things, hobbies, and a lot of reading, a lot of film. So it's various things to fill up the time, some for work and some for kind of leisure and pleasure and play. So it's I keep mentioning balance. Like that's the hardest thing probably in life to find. So for me, it's been pretty great though to slow down. Because as you know, how many years has this been for you in the league?
Hate to say it, man, 38.
38 years. So 38. Like how many, and I think last time I saw you was in Staples, but when you're in the NBA and you're traveling so much at any capacity, right? Like you're very seldom. I remember Kyle Korver told me my rookie season, we shared the same age, and he goes, "You're very seldom in the same place more than 2 weeks at a time." And this time, it's been 61 days now since the season was postponed, but you're just always moving around. So in that way, it's kind of been nice. Yeah.
Well, because today it was 2 months ago today. It was a Tuesday that I worked my last game.
Right.
So, and my wife and my kids keep looking at me like, why are you home? Like, we've never seen you home this time of year.
Ever. There's so many, like how many, thinking like preseason, even in the summers too, with USA basketball and traveling with that all around, you know, different various sites, and then 82 games, and they have you traveling to different arenas and coming to Staples with 2 different teams. It's nonstop.
Yeah. But, you know, it's fun to be kind of, you know, seeing my kids and doing podcasts and trying to, like you said, trying to do some work that maybe had to go on the back burner. We've been building this Legends of Sport platform for the last 3 or 4 years. And, you know, I have to kind of shoehorn that in, you know, when I can during the NBA season. So are you playing any hoops at all? Do you have a hoop at your house or what?
So I didn't. We actually have a teammate who I never found out who it was. Actually, we have our group chats, and we have actually an app that kind of everything is anything that we need to know or is scheduled or, you know, just any information is all on this app called Teamworks. So I'm asking, like, who's the person who went to Walmart and got the hoop? Because, like,
seriously,
a media member had texted me. I'm like, oh God, what are they going to ask me for? What, like, inside, you know, detail or info do they want? And they're like, who was the teammate who went to Walmart? I was like, listen, I don't know. They're like, what are you not telling me? But it's just, it's funny. I hadn't touched a basketball for, I guess, last Friday, the first day our facility had opened up. That was the first time, the longest I've ever gone without shooting a basketball.
Wow. That's crazy. Even with your injuries and all that. Yeah. Wow.
I mean, amazing. Even then, no matter what it was, like if you consider my shoulder or like a weight bearing injury with anything, you know, below the waist, like, you know, I was still able to like sit in a chair or with my shoulder, like just form shooting with my right hand, or even just like dribble a basketball. But without, you know, and that's why it's such a beautiful game, because you can do it anywhere. So like I was touching a ball, but without shooting it, like just having that, it felt weird. But I mean, once a shooter, always a shooter. We actually have something that tracks it at our facility as well as our arena. I think everybody has that analytically across the league, but it was going in.
Well, I saw on your Instagram you had a great post about movies. Now, obviously, you're a movie buff, right? And that seemed like a great way to stay connected with your followers and your fans and just get them away from thinking about all this other crap we have to deal with. It was very intriguing, especially I told my wife that you would like to have Daniel Day-Lewis play you. And she said, that's my favorite. I love him. So tell him that. So she was very happy about that. Can you, just a crazy random question, like, do you ever see yourself doing movies like when you retire, like The Rock or even your old teammate LeBron, you know?
I mean, The Rock is unbelievable. Like I used to watch him when I was young, and I hated him when he was really The Rock, and he was such a, you know, arch nemesis of like Stone Cold Steve Austin and all those guys. So that was what I used to watch, and now he's become this. He's so versatile. He seems to be able to do everything. Has his own production company. I mean, his following even on social platforms is he's just so. I mean, he has like a gravitational pull to him. He's like a planet. Like everybody, it's a lot like LeBron in this way. Like he just brings everybody towards him, and he just has that like charisma and energy about him that when he walks in a room, you know he's there. Kobe was like that too. Every time I was like, I could tell like he could be behind me or he could be in the room. I'm like, something's different. Like he always just had that. That feel and appeal and aura about him. But I don't know, to answer your question. I don't know. I feel like I could be behind the camera on like the production side. Right. Because I try to see everything all the way back to like, you know, Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, to like, you know, Jimmy Stewart and Paul Newman and Clint Eastwood and you know, John Wayne, like Westerns. I love them, all the way to like mobster film, 70s, 80s, 90s, Scorsese, all the way up to now. I mean, you what was Daniel Day-Lewis' last film was Phantom Thread. Like I love movies. So to be involved in that in some capacity would be really, really cool. But on the acting side, like I don't know if I had that in me.
Maybe Godfather 4. I saw you come in that hoodie. You came in that Godfather hoodie to a game or something.
That's right. Yeah, a buddy of mine that owns Kith Ronnie Fide, he had a really, really cool collab with Godfather. That was cool.
Yeah, really. So, Kevin, there's so much for us to talk about, and I do, again, appreciate the time that you're giving me. And you're such an interesting guy. I mean, I've known you your whole career. When we dove really deep into the research about you, there's a lot of stuff I didn't know. In fact, I didn't know that you grew up in the Pacific Northwest.
Yes.
I didn't know that. For some reason, I thought UCLA guy, Beach Boys connection. You must have grown up in Southern Cal, but you didn't. So that's an interesting little tidbit that I found out.
Yeah.
And then I didn't know that you played professional volleyball during the 2011 lockout. Yeah. Wasn't aware of that. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. Did you ever play with Luke, by the way, Walton?
I did. So that's who. It was funny because when I first started, I went to Sixth Man, obviously. And, Manhattan Beach. So I went there, and I was on his team and got thrown in. And Six Man's a lot different than when you play with two. Like I didn't understand. Like sometimes when the ball's coming at you and you're a striker, you're hitting on the outside, you're an outside hitter. Don't touch it. So I'm like coming in there, and they're like, "No, don't! Like, what are you doing?" So Luke was like, "Okay, you're trash. Like you can't put this together." But I was actually putting in work with Kurt Rambis' son, Jesse Rambis. So I was going down to Manhattan Beach, and we were hitting it around, and I'm sure you've seen him at so many Laker games.
Oh yeah, love Jesse. Yeah,
but it was it was really fun to kind of put in the work and the touch, and the passing is the hardest part, but also just working in the sand. It was great for me when I came back onto the basketball court, because then, you're working so many different muscles, you're expending so much energy on the sand. Like, so getting on a hard court, that was like a nice transition. I'm like, oh, I feel bouncier. My legs feel fresh. Like, so like in fourth quarters, I was standing up during timeouts and feeling really good. But volleyball, you got to admire. It's like you watch The Last Dance, right? You got to admire trying to transition into another sport. It just shows you how, like, I have so much respect for even that sport. I mean, even volleyball now, because it's incredibly hard to maneuver throughout that sport. So it was cool. It was really cool. I actually competed in the Manhattan Beach Open against what was the best team in the world at the time. The names are escaping me, but it was incredible to see how, I mean, that level of like genius on that, at that sport was really cool.
It's funny because I shot the early days of beach volleyball when, people were just playing on the beach. Then they decided, all right, well, we'll invite people to come, bring your chairs, and it was free. But everyone would go for the bikini contest, and then there would be like volleyball over there,
Well, that's why Will Chamberlain always used to play volleyball, right? He was always there. People used to say like, oh, he was okay, like he would just stand and put his hands up and be the Big Dipper, Wilt the Stilt. Like he,
it didn't seem fair. No, absolutely not. So, Kevin, you correct me if I'm wrong, but you were the first athlete to come out publicly and donate to the arena workers in your home arena in Cleveland, which was an amazing gesture and just kind of like opened the floodgates for other arenas. I mean, they did that here right afterwards at Staples Center. With the 4 teams that play there. And it was interesting to me that you that obviously you were concerned about the arena workers and their financial health, but you were more concerned about their like anxiety health, like how they were going to deal with the anxiety of the pandemic, which it's an easy thing just to give money, but when you're actually speaking to people and you're empathetic with what what they're about to go through, that made such a huge impact on them, I'm sure. And it must have helped you as well, obviously, to stay connected with them.
You're exactly right. It's such a form of, I feel I've learned that in just expressing and peeling back layers of what I deal with on a daily basis, and like looking back and connecting the dots on my mental health struggles from when I was young, like giving yourself up or little random acts of kindness, or giving to people that are a part of your story or not, like the arena workers, like it makes me feel good. But I know you must have a unique perspective too, because these are people that I had mentioned, like you in some cases develop like, you have first name basis with people. And these are people, I know you've seen me walk into arena, especially at a home arena, like during the finals or playoffs, like, I'm giving the pounds. What's up? Like leaving them on the way out. Thank you guys again. So I had really considered, from a financial, perspective, that they were going to get hit really hard. But I hear more and more people talking about it now. Like they're saying, I feel so much anxiety. There's days where I just don't want to get up and do anything. And it just, it kind of takes off on a life of its own. And I think coming out of this too, there's going to be a lot of people dealing with mental health issues and things that are going to come to the forefront or surface that hadn't been there before. So it's going to be very unique in how perspectives are going to change, I believe, in regarding mental health and the tools and research that are going to come out of this.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you recently cited a New York Times article that discussed the serious health consequences of loneliness and social isolation, suicide, depression, longevity of life. And then there was another New York Times article that I read that said what we're going through is, quote, an epidemic of unspoken grief, right?
Yeah, that's great.
I hadn't heard that. Some heavy shit
heavy.
there.
Yeah, that's some heavy shit.
Yeah. So, man, I mean, I find myself in grief too. I mean, I'm worried. My income was gone 100% from one day to the next, because we do all the events at Staples Center besides all the sports, so I have my group, everybody's just, on a holding pattern.
I didn't know that. Yeah. And there's so many events. That was another thing too. I said, you guys got to realize the arena workers and those people we say every day, it's not just the event level. It's, throughout the entire arena. It doesn't matter at what capacity that they're working there. These people, they're not just working basketball games. It's not just 41 home games.
Yeah.
It's, it's concerts, it's everything. There's so many events that are filling up, because Staples, I mean, it's like, it's comparable and kind of mirrors what Madison Square Garden is in terms of like what, where those are some of the biggest events in the world are held there.
Yeah. We have, 4 professional teams, two arenas, the arena and Microsoft Theater. There's probably 450 events, in a good year. Wow. Both, if three or 4 of the teams or all the teams make the playoffs, it's, and most of these folks, it's a second job. And sometimes their other job is like a restaurant, and those are closed too. So it's like a double hit. I guess the things that you're doing, I heard about the All-In Challenge. That was pretty cool, right? So you want to talk about that, what you're doing with that?
The All-In Challenge was to basically, feed, I believe it was 100 million people, or it was to raise $100 million to feed the people, rather. And there was also Project Frontline, which was to, service healthcare workers and kind of find out what they need as, time goes on through this pandemic, as well as, and you mentioned restaurants, it's killing 2 birds with 1 stone too. So it's helping local businesses or, establishing some, like just, the economy is hit so hard, and read that 65% of restaurants could go under during this time.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
And a lot of them are doing takeout or ready to order stuff, but at the same time, they're having to pay a lease, or they have to pay rent, or they're having to pay, tax on that property. So you have to, I don't know if a lot of people consider that as well. So over time, I think it's really, as well as this being Mental Health Awareness Month, and we're doing a lot there, is that it kind of evolves in what people need and who's affected the most by this. So those are just various ways to, be a part of something bigger. I mentioned Pay It Forward, and even just, I try to encourage people to try and make an impact, even if it's locally at a food bank, at like some people think that's a micro level, but you could, if this time has taught me anything, it's that like a small gesture can go a really long way. I think people think just like, oh, you throw a bunch of money at it and that's going to make the biggest difference. But no, that really, really helps. It makes a massive impact. You've seen that across the NBA and us being like together and super powerful in that way, but also like just, supplying meals for, and even different devices and different things that these frontline workers would need. It goes a long way.
100%.
Like even gifting like the UPS or the FedEx driver like a
Yeah.
bottle of wine. It's like
Yeah.
you're allowing us to live some semblance of a regular life during this time. So those are just people you gotta, even like the mailman, like try
Yeah.
to just make sure that they're thought of and considered. I think
Yeah.
it's not lost on us.
No, 100%. And Project Frontline, right, is another
Project
cause
Frontline. That was the one. Yep.
yeah,
And we worked with the Cleveland Clinic
right.
and a couple of local restaurants during that. And like you paid it forward. So
Yeah.
Allie LaForce did it, CJ McCollum, Michael Simon,
Yeah.
so on and so forth. Like it's pretty cool to kind of send it off to them, and they kind of put their own spin on it and do their own thing.
Yeah, interesting. So you and I, my friend, work in a really macho industry, right? I've been in it a little longer than you, but it's a it's a tough place to share feelings, man.
Yes.
And you need to fit in and be one of the boys. And I don't think there's more macho. Maybe the Army, I guess. I don't know. Is more macho,
Yeah.
but from an early age, it's like that. And I got into this business in my very early 20s. And I come from a long line of therapists, by the way. My dad was a therapist, one of the first major therapists in Brooklyn where I grew up. I got uncles and my brother and the whole thing. So, but the interesting thing is that my dad was a great therapist, like outside the house. But as soon as he came home, it's like he didn't want to hear squat from us, So we didn't talk to anybody except each other. So fast forward. You release this incredible article in Players Tribune. It basically opens the floodgates for so many other athletes. I mean, you did. I mean, I know that you did an incredible, generous gesture. And it's just funny because I read today there's an LA Times article about Meta World Peace when he was Ron Artest thanking his psychiatrist at the 2010 finals, right? And everybody thought it was like hilarious and a joke. And he was deadly serious. He goes, I couldn't have done this today. I called my therapist before I came to the game, So, I mean, is this a mantle, obviously, that you welcome, right? And you've talked about that this is your life's work, right? Is it daunting sometimes for you to kind of be out front about this all the time?
Yeah, I think it's very, very daunting because I think your mind in times of not only isolation, but just sometimes leisure time when you're left alone, it tends to, I guess, try and play tricks on you. So sometimes I think to myself, like, I haven't done anything. I even think about this in my career, and it was really after I allowed myself to open up and be exposed in this, that I kind of finally patted myself on the back, and it's like, hey, you've done some really good things in your career on and off. But I think you're always scared that, you're going to be, and depression does this in this way, and so does anxiety, that you're a fraud, or you're not worthy, or if you failed, or you missed your last shot, or that you automatically suck. So that means the rest of everything is going to suck. So I think in that way it can be super daunting, but I have to keep reminding myself that I am doing good, and it's not. This is so much bigger than me. It's so much bigger than me, because I mean, it's cool to hear that your father was a therapist, because like in terms of that, like seeing all sides of it, it's almost like mental health issues or mental illness, or at any capacity, like your father was, like it's in your family or not yet. And the numbers speak for that. Like you mentioned the New York Times article, even talking about loneliness. Like I had no idea that was going on. So to be a leader in this area, or in this stadium, if you will, it requires more than me just sharing my own story. It's other people's stories, and it's continuing to absorb and read and share personal anecdotes, but also bring the true experts in and other people's stories, so that that's not just a one size fits all model saying, okay, this person has depression, this person has anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia, whatever it is. You can't say, all right, we're going to put them in a box and this is just the only way we're going to treat them. it takes on all different forms, all different shapes, and everybody is, living their own dream and absorbing things and reacting to things in different ways. So it's very, very complex, but that's where I feel good in what I'm doing and feel like I'm part of something real, and I'm going to be on hopefully the winning side of history, is just continuing to battle this thing. And outside of basketball, it pretty much being my main focus.
Yeah, I mean, the recovery community, which I'm very active in, being of service is the highest thing you can do for someone else, and it helps your own recovery as well. So,
for sure.
The mantra, of course, the mantra, it's your mantra of the Kevin Love Fund, is that everyone is going through something, right?
Yes.
And that your goal was to normalize, in your own words, normalize the conversation about mental health. And it's interesting to me because I have 3 kids, past college age now, that you launched the fund at UCLA, right, with Dr. Krask, and
yes,
and was that what was the decision about launching it there at UCLA? Because my kids went through a lot in college, and I did too, and I'm sure you did also. What was that? Obviously, the conscious decision on that.
Well, I wanted to keep it. I wanted to keep it at home. But Dr. Michelle Krask, she is an absolute rock star. Like if you look at, like I always say, like the Hall of Fame, as you know, like it's so elite and it's so amazing. But like if you have a statue, that means you're like in the elite of the elite. And I'm like, as far as like a psych department goes, or like what she means to that entire world, like you should see how it breaks down. She's like I always tell her, I'm like, you're badass, you're a rock star, like your accolades are unbelievable. And she's been doing this like you. It's like 38, like I don't know how many years it's been, but she's put in 30 plus years at least surrounding this. So this is this is her life's work. So I wanted to partner with someone and some place that was going to not only further that research and message and creating to beat down that stigma and talking about it as you mentioned, but like find a way to service the most people. It didn't matter the demographic. And like right now we're focusing more mostly on the next generation and younger kids. Like we have really cool programs going on, and our 4 pillars are stigma, education, tools, and research. But UCLA just had, as you know, like living there, like in LA, you in the greater LA area, is that UCLA Medical is like top of the top. I mean, there's Cedars, but it's I thought it was really important to me to partner with a top hospital or a top psych department that really understand the why and the how we're going to fix this and the research component. Because I was speaking every time, because we've sat down and done a ton of like seminars and speaking engagements, and I would mostly, because it's probably almost 2 years now of starting the fund, I would expose kind of, okay, this is what I went through, this is what I felt, this is why I came to this point, this is X, Y, and Z. And then she, I kind of throw the lob, and she would slam it home and saying, okay, this is exactly why, this is what the numbers say, this is where I think it's going to go. So she just kind of brought everything together, kind of smoothed out the, because you see, I could be long-winded, I can go all over the place, try to connect the dots, but she just like nails it. She just punches it home and is just a rock star in this space.
I love that you brought her to Cleveland last October. It was like what, 500 people or so you spoke to, or a huge group from what I read. And that's pretty cool. I mean, you taken her out of probably her comfort zone there at Westwood, and
for sure
bringing the show on the road pretty much, right?
Yeah, it's been fun. And she's been like, we do these what's a funny little note is like, we'll do these, like we did Good Morning America together, and like these shows are starting on the East Coast, so I'm shooting at a 7:30 a.m. segment Eastern Standard Time, and she's waking up at 4:30, putting on her on camera face and waking up and having her coffee, and like she's like just has that younger energy and is so down and so ready to go that. And I'm actually doing a Instagram live with her on Friday at 12. I did it with Andy from Headspace last week. Awesome. But we're going to be talking, all things mental health and mindfulness and gratitude and
Yep.
just a lot of really, really good topics.
Yeah, we had a meditation expert on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and she talked about that, about how helpful and necessary it is right now to learn those techniques.
Oh yeah.
So
even
yeah.
if it's just deep
Mhm.
breathing, it's like so many people think like, oh, meditation, I'm going to sit there and it's going to be woosah. And
Yeah.
but really it's just, I even do it in the morning. It's just like, all right, I just need to take 6 to 8 deep breaths. It's going to take me 2 minutes, and like, all right, that's going to set me up the rest of the day. Like I always talk about doing my work early, like get your work done early, and then, the rest of the day you can kind of pick apart what you want. And I think that's why I always do my workouts in the morning, or else I'll like procrastinate. I'll, just resist. So.
Well, then you get to be my age and it just doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
But
then you just give
dude,
it
I used to watch Kobe meditate, of course, in the locker room, in a spare locker room, and in a closet. And he used to literally meditate during the national anthem. I mean, he would be so zoned out. I have a picture in the book we did where he's just in another place, and all hell's about to break loose at an NBA Finals game, and this dude's like his heartbeat's like that. It's crazy. I did want to ask you about the panel that you did with President Obama and Paul and Giannis, and it was shocking when I read that you said that 1 in 7 kids deal with some kind of mental health issue, right? And half of those kids don't seek any help. I mean, it's just, and I have kids in their 20s, and then we have an 11-year-old in 6th grade. And, you can see that, especially now with the anxiety of not going to school, not seeing their friends, there's no touching, there's nothing going on. I can see her getting, a little jacked up, and, we invite the friends over, and they social distance, but, is that something that's going to continue, you think, on that level with somebody like President Obama, to keep that conversation going?
Yeah, I certainly hope so. And he was looking at and, kind of seeing different thought leaders in their various spaces. So like Chris Paul, I mean, he's unbelievable. He's just Chris. So great and kind of, dips his toes or goes all in so many different areas. And, with him, it was servicing different schools with electronics and bringing them up to date, basically bringing them into 2020. But it was Chris, it was Giannis, who doesn't really have anything yet. And he had spoke about that, but President Obama was like, listen, just by being who you are and the MVP and telling
where he came from.
That's what he said. Like his story about where he came from.
Sharing shoes with his brothers, seriously?
Sharing shoes with his brothers, and then like working like different jobs just to supply money and help with the food. Like it's they're like that story expressing that's meaningful. Like keep living that outwardly. So that was cool. And then Michael Wilbon, he's just such a great moderator and presence. And he had something with the Basketball Hall of Fame at that that weekend as well, which was cool. But then President Obama was speaking about the Obama Foundation and thought leaders and different leaders coming out of especially the South Side of Chicago, but all inclusive as well. And then, but he said something to me that was opened up my eyes. And he had actually spoken about loneliness. He spoke about loneliness. And this was like 3 months or 2 months prior to that article in the New York Times. And he acknowledged to me, and I never really thought about it like this or really dove into thinking about it being such a social issue. And then he talked about gun control, how these people feel lonely and they feel hopeless and they have nothing to live for and their future looks bleak. So they have these guns and then they'll take their lives. Like suicide is way up. So, but to your point about the younger demo, like that next generation, it's crazy, like what the numbers say. And I talked about those, various mental illnesses earlier, like 50% are diagnosed by the age of 14 and 75% are diagnosed by the age of 24. So it is a young people disease. Right. These are young people, they're just, and they're so susceptible to change, and the early intervention, I think, is the biggest thing, because the what is going on in the mind and the chemical imbalance is happening way before you see it played out in interactions and in behavior. So
Yeah.
that early intervention and being able to diagnose it early without feeling like you're weird or different, or you're you're not gonna have advantages, or you're not gonna be able to live some semblance of a normal life. I think it's just so important to continue to have these conversations, so especially kids don't feel they're alienated, because then that just takes on a life of its own. And for me, it was just not understanding why I felt the way that I felt, and it played out in like rage, and then it would be crying, and then it would be like locking myself in my room and thinking like, is this what life's going to be like? So I think it just robs you of your in some ways your human potential. But I also feel like in some ways it can be a driving force as well, because I mentioned earlier, like I there was nothing that was fraudulent about me, but I still felt like, oh, I was going to be outed, or somebody was going to find out about this. So that was like okay, I have to achieve to make myself feel better about myself.
Yeah. It's interesting. You talked about that, because when you went to Cleveland, Jason Collins was one of your teammates, right? Wasn't he?
Jason Collins was, I was the rookie in Minnesota.
In Minnesota, sorry.
Yeah.
Minnesota, Jason was a teammate, right? And Jason's a good friend of the podcast. And
the Collins are great. Yeah, they're
the
Harvard
best.
Westlake alums in LA. Yeah,
but he, he had to keep that secret. I mean, he didn't have to, but he felt he had to keep that secret for his whole career, basically, until it all came out. And everybody is going through something. Absolutely, right? So let's turn to your career, because I can't ignore your unbelievable career, right? So you get drafted out of UCLA. I found it interesting that you essentially drafted and traded for OJ Mayo, who you competed against.
That was a big trade. There's like 10 or 11 players in that
Huge.
trade.
Did you know that was going to happen, by the way, on draft night?
I knew that there was that I would have potentially been picked at 3.
Okay.
I had worked out for teams 2 through 6, and I had a guarantee from the Bucks at 7.
Oh, okay.
And I remember my last workout with the Clippers, it was like in front of Elgin Baylor and like all their I'm trying to think who else. It was Mike Dunleavy and Neil O'Shea, and I just couldn't make a shot. Like, okay, I'm not getting drafted by LA. I don't know if I make it there on the draft board, but there's no way the Clippers are getting drafted.
Right.
I tested well. I just couldn't make a shot. Even I sat down with Mike Dunleavy at lunch, senior, and he was like, "Couldn't make a shot today." I was like, "Yeah," but I had an idea that they being the Minnesota Timberwolves, were going to draft me at 3. They passed me. Then Russell was drafted by, I guess it was Seattle, but Oklahoma City.
Seattle, right.
And then I was picked by Memphis at 5. I had an idea that Memphis would pick me. I had a great workout there, and I wasn't going to fall past 5.
Yeah.
Then, of course, like you're at the draft, you see the cameras kind of work your way, and then you're like, okay, I'm getting picked. Great.
Right.
But I remember I was I put my phone down. I turned my phone off, and Jeff Schwartz, my agent, was calling me at dinner.
Yeah.
And I guess he was blowing up my phone, and I turned my phone back on. He left me a couple messages, but he got in touch with my brother. And my brother's like, you need to talk to Jeff. He's like, he needs to get you on the phone now. I go, oh God, what happened? It's only draft night. I'm already getting in trouble. And he got me on the phone. He was like, hey, Kevin McHale, his GM at the time became my coach about, I think it was like 25 games in, but he's like, yeah, he just, he's got to have you. So this is the trade going down. I listened to like most of the players. I think he had an idea of who was OJ Mayo swap, and ended up going there the next day, and that was that.
It's interesting because you remind me so much of Kevin McHale. I mean, he's a lot lankier than you and stuff, but and he doesn't have that deadly 3-pointer that you have. But interior and rebound. I mean, you were a rebounding machine, man. Oh my God, you set that record for double doubles that hadn't been set since the merger. For God's sake, yeah. But did you see yourself as that was your role, like to be a rebounder in the NBA? I mean, you weren't going to be like Dennis Rodman or anything, because you did have an offensive game. But did they try to push you towards that in Minnesota?
They didn't push me. It's funny. They originally, when I came into the league, they're like, "You're not shooting threes." which was funny to me because I was at that point, I was going through the workouts and I was shooting from deep. I was showing them that I could. And my dad had taught me from early age. He's like, this is where the game's going. He's like, you need to watch this guy, Dirk Nowitzki, because he's 7 feet tall and he's trailing the break and shooting threes. He's like, my dad it was interesting because he had the presence of mind to know where the game was going before it got there. So that was big. And then Steph came in and changed the game to pace and space really forever. And Daryl Morey and only want paint shots and threes. But no, for me to get on the floor and to stay on the floor early in my career, it was all rebounding. It was
I
like
remember.
Just offensive rebounds, tip-ins, and then like occasional hook shot, occasional counter, and then some 15 to 17 foot jump shots. So that was it really my rookie year. I didn't shoot many threes my second year either. But just continued to constantly rebound the basketball. But then when I got here to Cleveland, I bet this is my 6th year here now. I was because of Bron and Kyrie, and you saw it firsthand, is that I was a floor spacer. So I'm like, how am I going to get involved rebounding the basketball? So I had to do most of my rebounding on the defensive side. And I still averaged over 10 a game. But for me, I was like, I'm just so used to. Another thing I learned from my father is that he's like, the game is played inside out. It's like the game has evolved and changed now. Where the first 10 shots, you look at a team that's small ball like Houston, and they're shooting. I mean, they're either getting to the lane, getting fouled, or they're shooting threes.
They're shooting like 53s in a game.
It's unbelievable.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, back in the day, I started shooting before they even had the 3-point line, believe it or not.
So my dad played in that era.
But so if you saw a team shoot 8 threes, that was like a ridiculous game, right? So all of a sudden you're in Cleveland, right? And you got this guy LeBron who decided to come back. And you guys reached the mountaintop in 2016. I mean, the stupid question, but it's got to be the pinnacle of your career, right?
100%.
Holding that trophy, and
100%.
And that team was such an amazing team, wonderful group of guys, right? And to be part of his journey was probably pretty amazing too, right?
It was really cool. That's why, a big part of the reason I signed back there was because I thought we had, really had unfinished business. Like my shoulder in the quarterfinals against Boston that year, 2014-15, and then Kyrie going out, which with his knee in overtime of game 1 at Oracle. It was like 12:01. David Griffin called me. He's like, "You ready to do this?" And I'm like, "Let's do it." I'm ready to go. I'm committed. Let's do this thing. And the first year, it's well documented, was not easy. Obviously there's a lot of bullshit that in storylines that people have to run with and keep going. And, 90% of them were, not true. But I really felt that, there was a bigger, it was again so much bigger than me, and I knew that I had to sacrifice, and I did sacrifice a lot in going to Cleveland. But to be part of Bron's story, Kyrie's story, 2 guys that are, Hall of Famers, one's considered the best ever, like that also played a part in it as well. Like I wanted to be a part of one of those teams that people would talk about forever, and the fashion that we won, being down in 3-1 and coming back, that just made it. It just made it that much more sweet. Although digging a hole, I would not advise it.
But they had set their record for most wins.
They were incredible.
Like, Vegas had them as huge, favorites and the whole thing. Interesting. It's watching The Last Dance and seeing Michael come back for the second stint. It just sort of draws a parallel for me watching this, and then knowing what happened with LeBron, where he came back and he was on that mission to get that championship. I want to talk about the 2012 Olympic team because, in my opinion, this is just me, but that was like the second best Olympic team that I'd ever been around. Even Jerry Colangelo said that team was stacked. You and a guy named D Wade, and you got LeBron, and then you got this other dude, Kobe. Who else was on the CP3?
CP3. We had a mix of like we had
AD.
Yeah, AD first coming in from Kentucky. I think
Right.
I think it was 5 from the 2008 Redeem team. It was
Yeah.
5 from the 2010 World Championship team, and
Yeah.
then James Harden and AD.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So we had a mix of like not the next wave, and then the wave that was like to our senior, which we're still in their like late 20s, just hitting on all cylinders.
Yeah. Yeah.
Playing at an extremely high level. And then
Yeah.
Kobe was getting towards the end, like he was in his 30s. I think he was the only guy besides maybe Tyson Chandler. But it was
yeah.
it was pretty crazy to see.
Was it fun for you to play with Russell again?
Yes.
Yeah, I bet, right?
Yeah, it was funny. We were always looking at each other on those USA teams, and we were just like, hey man, we're back to being the bench mob. Like we were so used to like, starting and being the star of our teams. But when USA basketball, you've been around it enough to know, like, again, being a part of something like that, nothing matters but this right here.
Absolutely.
Like we're not playing for that. We're playing for this. Like it's so much bigger than that. So like when you just feel so much pride when you step up on that podium and you're just like slightly higher than that next than Spain. You're slightly higher than Russia was. Like it's
and you're
really,
truly
really cool.
excuse me, a band of brothers up there, and Coach K from day one. I mean, I tell people about those team meetings and people can't believe it. I mean, he brings the general in and he's like
Martin Dempsey. Martin Dempsey. Shout out General Martin Dempsey.
No messing around there. Kev, you've been posting tributes to the class of 2020.
I haven't done Kobe yet, though.
You haven't done Kobe. I noticed that.
I can't how do you wrap your mind about what you want to say?
Well, you're right.
And he was, far more than KG, far more than Tim Duncan. He was somebody that I actually, not like a Bron and not like a D Wade and not like a Chris Paul or Melo or players of that sort that weren't on his team but were around him so much, like in the entire 2008 Redeem team, like, but I did spend a lot of time with him. And I have so many stories with him, and he was always so good to me that it's hard to put into words, like a tribute for him. And when he passed, it was like, how do you it almost feels like it's never going to be enough to and you have to keep paying homage to him and sending love to him and his family and Gigi. But it's impossible to put into words like what he meant for me growing up, and because I remember I was begging my best friend from back home. He had owned courtside seats to the Blazers forever. And I'm like, I got to see Shaq. I got to see Kobe. Like, my teams, my dad played. It's funny. My dad played for the Lakers in the early 70s and he wore number 34. So like Shaq, I was like, Shaq is so cool. Like Kobe, my brother loved Kobe. It was like when Shaq was on the land.
You played for the Lake Oswego Lakers, by
Lakers,
the way,
exactly.
Kind of interesting.
That's right.
Anyway,
that's
whatever.
right. No, so it's again, so hard to put into words what Kobe meant to me, and then like what he meant to the game. It's well,
that's the last thing I want to ask you, because we're going to do a series leading up to his Hall of Fame enshrinement, and getting a lot of people to comment about him. Do you have one anecdote? Doesn't have to be long, just something in the locker room you notice something, or even just one word to describe him, something that we can use for that?
I'll say this: we had an amazing moment after the 2012 Olympic gold medal game. I don't know if I've ever told this story, but for a Hall of Fame.
Breaking news! I love
moment.
This.
Yeah, just like for a Hall of Fame moment, I feel like it's worth it. We had you go change up, you go right on the podium. Obviously you walk around with the flag, you're sitting there going crazy, just so much joy. You see your family. Obviously this is not in that order, but then you go off and you're supposed to do media. So we're kind of walking, zigzagging through this line of media people, and then you go all the way back, kind of through the corridor and through the event level into where our locker room was. And we're
Yeah.
like, we're ready to have like the champagne and spray it just like you would if you won a championship, right?
Yeah.
So we're like all looking forward to that. And Kobe and I are kind of lagging behind, and he has a ton of media. It's Kobe Bryant, and people are stopping me. But as we're walking out, he kind of, takes me over the shoulder. And this guy comes up to us and says, Mr. Bryant, Mr. Love, I need you to step aside here for a second. And they drug test us.
Oh, jeez.
So we miss out on that.
Come on.
We don't even know what happened. And we're sitting there, we look at each other like, man, this anticlimax is like one of the biggest.
Really?
I've never been so overjoyed. And, we had such a tough game against Spain, and it's this bucket. I think with like a little bit over a minute left. And so that's when we knew like we were really going to win it. Coach K's jumping up and down. He turns to the bench like, we're going to win an Olympic gold medal. And so we get stopped.
Unbelievable.
And we're like, come on, man. Can we have, can we get champagne? Like, they're like, I don't know. We're going to have to see. So Kobe and I are literally sitting there waiting till we have to do our drug test. And somebody watches do our business, but we were able to get the champagne, and we were just sitting there like, man, who would have thought? So that's
a great story, man. I never heard that.
Amazing. And I'm trying to think of who from our staff was even there when that happened.
Probably like Sean Ford or somebody like that, or
no,
Thule,
but he would have been
guys.
back. Yes, or somebody who was like
Becky, maybe.
Craig, who was doing the
maybe
media?
Craig,
yeah. Whoever was back, I don't know, because he had to see everybody off the floor as well. I don't know. It might be one of our security guards, but. We were back there. We were able to get champagne. Yeah. And obviously we were not spraying it in there, but it was such a like intimate moment with Kobe, and that will always stick out in my mind as like the top moment I ever had with him, because we were just until we did our thing and had a shorter walk to the bus because we were brought our stuff. Yeah. We just got to sit there and just what now? What's the rest of the summer look like? Or what are you guys thinking for this year? Like just what's the family do? You guys going on a vacation? Just like little things like outside of basketball that we weren't even talking about. So Kobe was always great to me. Always, a joy to be around, incredible to watch, incredible to be a teammate with on various all-star teams and on the Olympic gold medal team. But that was a moment that sticks out in my mind that I guess very, very, besides like, my friends that I've seldom told the story to, that's a moment that really sticks out to me.
Well, thanks for sharing that, man. That's a great story.
If Hall of Fame, like I got to share that. That was like, that was a really cool moment in my life. This guy I grew up idolizing, got to be a teammate with, and just got to know at a pretty good level.
It's interesting. The last thing I want to say is that you played against Kobe, played with Kobe, and now you have teammates who never played against him, only saw him play growing up as kids. Now you're sort of getting to be the wily veteran kind of guy. And it's interesting that you're now a bridge to his legacy, and that you can kind of help instill that Mamba mentality legacy forward with these younger guys, which I think is a pretty cool thing, right?
It's amazing. I mean, but the younger generation too. This is the last thing I'll add is like, even if you look at Trae Young, like he was somebody, like grew up idolizing him, and very likely he caught more of the 24 Kobe than the number 8 Kobe. Like, So
interesting.
And he if you've ever watched Muse, the documentary, I remember telling the story to Kobe and how much that documentary meant to me. We were in this meeting with this business that we were both in, and he was the person talking about kind of where this business is going. And Kobe, after his everything he touches turns to gold. Like afterwards, he's such a great entrepreneur as well. So we were talking about business, and so I had to share with him. I said, Kobe, I got to share some with you. And there's like 20 other people sitting around watching, all athletes, mind you. It's like, and I had to sit, and I got super animated in talking about it. But I just said it was just such a his mentality and what he meant to the game and what he meant to somebody like me growing up. Like, I think if you admire somebody, you should tell them. And I'm so glad. I mean, obviously hindsight's 2020, but like looking back and with everything that's happened, I'm so glad that I did. And that same thing with in a different way, but David Stern as well, like where he brought the game to where it is. And like he named me as an injury replacement for Yao Ming to my first All-Star team.
Right.
In LA.
In LA, right. Yes. Yeah. Well, listen, man, a lot of things to talk about offline at some point when we're together. Some great memories of the Mamba, and thank you for sharing that. It was a really great story, man. And you know, I hope that I get to see you on a court someplace. Maybe it'll be in the driveway or somewhere. I don't know. But man, keep up the great work that you're doing. The connection that you have to the people out there who really look up to you as a role model. And you know, I just love the fact that how involved you are, and how you just put it all out there, man. And it's so admirable. So thank again, Kevin. Thanks so much for your time.
Of course. I appreciate it. This was great.
Yeah, it was really fun, man. Really fun. Stay well, stay safe, and I'll see you on the court soon.
All right. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Kevin, for being such a great guest and being just a fantastic person, sharing your story and continuing the charge for bringing mental health awareness to the forefront in the conversation. Everyone, please find out more about the Kevin Love Fund at www.kevinlovefund.com. You can find out what causes Kevin is working with, how you can help during this pandemic and after the pandemic. And please continue to follow us at Legends of Sport on Instagram, at Legends_of_Sport on Twitter, and our blog, legendsofsport.blog. Really happy to have brought Kevin Love to you guys today. Big shout out to his PR person, Robin, and of course to my great and incredible researcher and producer, Veronica Ahn, who continues to mine the depths of research. Found some great stuff about Kevin today that I don't even know he knew about. But anyway, we look forward to bringing more podcasts to you guys. Please keep coming back. Please keep telling your friends. And as always, stay safe, stay well, and we'll see you next time.